Big day, Days of Sodom, Crow fan film. Let's review. Days of Sodom, a Crow fan film, stars Cody Falk, Vernon Wells, Natalie Paulson, and is directed by Cody Falk. What is up, guys? Welcome to a brand new 2026 review. This one I'm nervous for, okay? We're reviewing Days of Sodom, a Crow fan film. If you're not sure what that is, taking you back, Cody reached out to me about 2, maybe almost 3 years ago. And he said, hey, I want my guys to make a Crow fan film. And we're good friends, me and Cody, and he knows how much The Crow means to me. It's my favorite movie, tied with Halloween. You throw these ideas out and you never think that they're going to happen, come to fruition. Even though, you know, Cody Falk, he made Voorhees, a decent Friday the 13th fan film. So I just didn't know if this was, I mean, to make a Crow fan film, it's an ambitious project, okay? And I won't go too far in the weeds as far as my relationship with this movie and mine and Cody's talks along the way. There were a lot of them. We will do probably a live stream somewhere down the line pretty soon. The movie comes out this Friday, and that way we can really go deep into, I guess, my involvement in this. But this film, I had nothing to do with actually shooting the movie, okay? And I kind of purposefully told Cody, don't share really anything with me. The less I know, the better. Yeah, I've seen the images and the promotional stills and all that stuff, but I didn't want to see any of the movie until I actually finally sat down and watched it to review it. And I watched it twice. I watched it first, I guess, with a little bit more of a critical eye. But the second time I watched it as a Crow fan, you know, I just wanted to push all that away and I wanted to just sit down and enjoy the movie as a Crow fan. And I will give Cody a little credit for giving me a little bit of a push to say, hey, I think you should definitely watch this a second time, which I kind of wanted to anyway. He just kind of threw that out there. And I was like, well, I was going to do it anyway. But up front, this is a 2.5-hour movie. And that was the first thing that made me very, very skeptical. Cody stuck to his guns and he said, you know what? I tried. I tried to see if I could bring this down to less than 2 hours. I couldn't do it. This is my movie. And you know what? I agree with him. You get one chance to make your statement, make your Crow film, and that film is going to live throughout the rest of time. And oftentimes we watch theatrical cuts of movies, but then there comes a director's cut, like say a James Cameron director's cut that might be like 30 minutes longer, and we jump at that stuff, and we don't care how long it is. You know, that movie might be, 2.5 hours, 3 hours. So I was thinking, you know what? Look at it like that. This is the director's cut, but it happens to be the theatrical cut as well. It's a 2.5-hour movie, and I can tell you up front, I agree with him after seeing the movie. I thought every sequence in this movie needed to be there, and I think there's definitely some patience taken with a lot of the scenes in the movie because it's an artistic statement at the end of the day, and you want your specific vision to unfold in the way that you want it to unfold, right? If you want it to be, a breakneck action type fast moving movie, then yeah, you're going to go that route. But if you want your movie to breathe and to kind of let the scenes linger because they need to do that, then you're going to do that as well. And I think this movie needed that. I could see the direction Cody Falk was trying to do with this picture. So let me stop right there. I could talk all day about the lead up to this movie, but I want to give you a quick plot synopsis. This is not a remake of the first Crow movie. I think that would be almost disrespectful to Brandon Lee. And Cody Falk thought that would be disrespectful. He wanted to do his own story. This is a detective type of story where you got the main character is Thorn Gray, and he happens to work with this police force with a bunch of crooked cops because there is a mayor played by the great Vernon Wells who it's sort of like a crime underworld. But Thorn Gray, he has a fiance by the name of Caroline. There's certain things I don't want to tell you. Let's just say that they both die, and he comes back as the Crow. Now, first thing I want to get out of the way is I think this movie has such a visual touch to it. It looks glorious in a lot of the scenes, and this movie was shot on a very, very low budget. Very low budget. You could tell that when you're watching the movie, but you can also see the passion, and you can see the creativity, and almost the decisions that are made behind the scenes to get a scene done. And there's going to be some shots in this movie where you might not see that much in the background because they just didn't have that much to shoot with. But the characters in this movie, I think, are so strong and so effective that you luckily are focused on them. But there's also plenty of almost like gothic atmosphere in the background in quite a few of the scenes. There are quite a few scenes that will give you chill bumps for sure. The initial introduction of the Crow in this movie, when he is putting on his makeup, is iconic, and it's obviously an homage to the first movie for sure. I think that is the biggest homage to the Brandon Lee movie. This movie does open with a dedication to Brandon Lee as well. But then when the Crow faces off against his first victim, that's another really iconic shot. So, I like that Cody Falk was constantly thinking about how he wanted to set up these shots. How can I make these shots interesting? If I don't have money for, say, like a big rain machine or something like that, how can I put a stamp on it? So you're going to see like fog in this movie. You're going to see just a lot of creativity for sure. Just things to keep your eyes busy and keep you interested in the story. Let's talk about Vernon Wells for a little bit. I hadn't seen Vernon Wells in anything in decades, really. And, I think a lot of us remember him from Commando, the main villain in Commando, but he was also in The Road Warrior. He's done quite a few movies, especially back in his heyday in the 80s. And oftentimes when you have these actors that you haven't seen them in maybe decades, you're not quite sure what you're going to get. Vernon Wells as the villain of this movie, I think, is awesome. He is downright intimidating. And this is an actor. I could totally see, especially on my second viewing, because I think my first viewing, his performance is a little jarring. On the second viewing, I really, really got what he was going. I feel like behind the scenes, Vernon Wells was like, I'm going to take this character and I'm going to give him a certain cadence, a certain voice, and make him really almost like the Kingpin, in the Marvel movies. Also, I got a little bit of a Colonel Cochran vibe from Halloween 3, believe it or not. It's not exactly like that, but he has a delivery that is very intimidating in this movie. You know that he is not to be messed with or you will be handled. But also, I think all the villains in this movie, they all have their own voice. And I do think a Crow movie might be only as good as its villains. Yes, of course, the Crow himself is very important, especially in the first movie. Brandon Lee freaking slayed. But Brandon Lee was really propped up by amazing villains like freaking Top Dollar and T-Bird and Fun Boy. They all had really creative names, but also creative personalities. This movie, I think, has the same. You can almost form your own little story off of each of them. One of them, and I was talking to Cody about this, reminded me of one of the villains in City of Angels. I won't tell you who, but I think you'll figure it out. And by the way, there's a lot of freaking winks and nods and Easter eggs all throughout this movie for sure. But also, I think one of the main villains that you're really going to lock in on is Dante, played by Maven. I don't follow wrestling, but I know Maven used to be a wrestler. He's also like a YouTube personality. He's really effective in this, actually. And, he has this like signature scar on the side of his face to give him some character. But one thing I love about all these villains, too, is they're not sympathetic villains. These are evil, evil people. But you still get some variety, and I think there's one villain. He's trying to reason with Thorn in one of the scenes that, he didn't really have a choice, which sort of reminded me of like City of Angels, where he tells the guy, you always have a choice. So, yeah, I think this is a very strong script, honestly, and I think it's a unique story amongst all of the Crow movies, and I think there's similarities, to all the Crow movies. The detective angle, obviously, you're going to grab a little bit of that from Salvation, but I think this is different enough from that. And I even think Vernon Wells, amongst all the Crow villains, I think he stands out. I think he's very, very effective. Comparing this to the 2024 movie, which I know a lot of people hate that movie, I actually like the 2024 movie, and I've come around to it a lot, but this is a far better Crow movie. Because that movie, The Crow, he doesn't really become the Crow until like very late in the movie. Whereas this one, I think it aligns more with the traditional Crow movies. You're going to see him, I guess you could call it Crow out early on in the movie. But I do love how it's kind of interwoven with flashbacks throughout, just to give you a little bit of who Thorn Grey was as a person before he became the Crow. And there's not too much of that, but I think there's just enough. And by the way, Cody Falk can act. Which is another thing, especially in fan films, you expect bad acting. And I think there's a little bit of that in here. But I think for the most part, everybody kind of, comes to play and does the best they can at the job. Sure, there again, you're going to see a little bit of fan film acting where it's going to stick out like a sore thumb at a couple spots maybe. But I think overall, the acting, I think, is very well done, especially by our lead character, Thorn Grey. Also, there is one character, and I did get approval to mention her, Sarah. Sarah is the one character from the first movie that does return in this movie. The character Sarah, not the actual actor. Rochelle, is it Rochelle Davis? Yeah, she's not in this, but the young actress that plays her, I think, does a really great job. And Sarah, I think, serves such a big purpose, maybe as big as she did like in City of Angels. She's a very important character because she sort of reminds Thorn what he's here to do, what his purpose is. Because Thorn, I think out of all the Crows, he's the one that doubts his purpose, constantly says to himself, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. Why have I been chosen? There's tons of people, especially in this horrible town, that have been, murdered. And she reminds him why he's here and his purpose. And if he doesn't do what he's going to do, get justice, then this is going to keep going on. So I really enjoyed Sarah in this movie quite a bit. So the last thing I'll say about this, it's coming out this Friday. The last scene in this movie, I almost teared up. It is so, I think, profound and moving. And I think the music in this movie, like most Crow movies, except for Wicked Prayer, just very like emotional and strong music. And there's sometimes where you'll get like some heavy rock type music, especially when the Crows kind of coming out of the shadows, coming out of the fog. So I think there's a lot of chill bump inducing musical moments throughout this movie. And I'll put a link. I actually made a playlist. I literally looked at the credits and made my own Spotify playlist for The Crow, Days of Sodom. And I'll put a link to that below so you guys can check it out for sure. I think you'll dig the playlist. There are a couple of Joy Division songs in the playlist as well. Super high purchase worthy. And I know because I'm biased and I have a lot to do with this movie, or my name's attached to it. I'll just say that, okay? I didn't make the movie or anything. Like I said, I haven't seen anything until I just watched it. But I'm just being honest, and I think you guys know I'm going to shoot you straight. And I even told you earlier, if I see problems with the movie, then I'll tell you. And I did tell you there's a couple of little acting spots because of it being a fan film. But the one thing that's not a problem in this movie is the runtime. I think the runtime, 2.5 hours, it really goes by pretty quick because you're so invested in what's going on. And like I just watched an hour and a half movie, The Yeti, the other night, and I was wanting to saw my own head off. It was boring as hell. So it just goes to show runtime doesn't necessarily mean a movie's going to be boring, because this is not boring. There's a scene with a helicopter in this movie that reminded me of The Dark Knight a little bit, if I'm being honest. Okay, so yeah, I'm giving this a freaking high purchase worthy. I really enjoyed what Cody Falk and Wet Paint Pictures did with this movie. I think it's really, really great. And I will definitely continue to watch it down the line in my Crow run for sure. So when you guys see this on Friday, come back over here. I want to hear what you guys think of the movie. If you didn't like it, let us know that you didn't like it. But this is an exciting day, exciting week. It's finally here. Guys, this is like 3 years in the making. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And you're going to see that blood, sweat, and tears on the screen for sure. Watch it on the biggest TV that you can, your big 65-inch. That's what I watched it on. Crank the freaking sound up, get your food, get your drinks, all that stuff, and just have a great time. Bring friends over and have a crow night. All right, so yeah, that's my review for Days of Sodom, a Crow fan film. Be sure to come over to the second channel, Drumdums Xtra. Always adding stuff over there. Just added something over there today. Be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays, Rudy Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums and on my social, support me on Patreon, become a channel member, buy me coffee. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day, and Drumdum out.